So, so first of all, I would like to thank organizers for organizing such a beautiful conference in a beautiful place. And I will present the study made in Argonne mostly, which titled Targeted Pinning Landscape Evolution in Superconductors for Optimal Critical Current. So this is making critical current by design idea. So where we try to replace, at least partially, the trial and error development of the superconductor in the laboratory by simulations. So in this particular talk, I will concentrate on the development of the critical current in the superconductors. So first of all, I will present our numerical approach, the validation of this numerical approach, and then also present several typical pinning landscapes, and including spherical particles, columnar defects, and mixed landscapes. So let me formulate the problem in more mathematical way. So let us consider the superconductor, fix the amplitude and the direction of the magnetic field, and fix the direction of current. So this is also a little bit unusual because usually you fix the landscape and change the magnetic field, temperature, and stuff like that. But here we fix the magnetic field, temperature, and change pinning landscape and describe the dependence of this landscape, the critical current on this landscape. So obviously, if we have just a clean type 2 superconductor, then the Lorentz force will act on vortices, and due to the vortex movement, the critical current will be very low or theoretically zero. In the opposite case, when we occupy the whole sample with defects, the superconductivity will be suppressed, and again, the critical current will be zero. So obviously, somewhere in between, we have some pinning landscape which corresponds to the maximal critical current. And our task is to find this landscape. So it can contain, for example, columnar defects, spherical defects, elliptical defects, or these question marks, whatever. So basically, our numerical approach is for finding this optimal landscape in this particular problem. We developed a TDGL solver for time-dependent Ginzburg-Landau equation. It is implemented for general-purpose GPUs units. It can simulate to a 3D system and can simulate up to about 700 cubed grid points. So we simulate inclusions by varying this coefficient before a linear term. So the details are published in this work. So let me go to the validation of this TDGL approach. So in the first experiment, the dysprosium particles was these dysprosium particles were embedded into superconductor by some chemical means, and these guys made a lot of pictures at an angle, so around 100 pictures at different angles, and then reconstruct the 3D volume of the superconductor, and then using special software and the fact that these dysprosium particles are almost spherical, extract the positions and sizes of all these particles. So they have just a table with all the positions and diameters of this particle, which allows us to plug in these particles into our solver as is. So we basically simulate the existent sample and compare the results. So, and in both field dependence of the critical current and angular dependence as a function of the angle of the applied field, it shows rather good agreement. So the next experiment consists of also IPCA superconductor. The first part is IPCA superconductor with pre-existent nanorods along C-axis. This superconductor was irradiated by heavy ions at 45 degrees angle to C-axis, and we can reproduce the experimental angular dependence of the critical current. In the second part of this experiment, the pristine sample was irradiated at plus minus 45 degrees, so two sets of tracks. And we can also reproduce more or less correctly the angular dependence in this case. So let us move on, and now I will briefly discuss spherical particles. So this is a movie made by previous speaker. So this is vortex dynamics in the landscape made of monodisperse spherical particles. And obviously this landscape, so this is randomly placed particles, so this landscape can be characterized just by two parameters. So the first parameter is the diameter of each particle, the second one is the concentration of the particles, or it's better to use, for different reasons, better to use volume fraction occupied by these particles. So as a function of these two parameters, the critical current has well-defined maximum, and it can be found by different numerical approaches, or just by looking at the sampling, so numerical simulations. But in this case, the landscape can be characterized just by two parameters. In some more sophisticated cases, there are a lot of parameters, so we have multidimensional space, and it can be not so obvious, so that's why we implemented more or less known a few optimization methods to systematically optimize the critical current. So there are 4 of them, so global optimization method and local, in 3 local methods. They are very, the first one, or the combination of the first and some of these are very efficient if we are talking about some landscape which can be characterized by a few parameters, so up to 10, I would say. Now, columnar defects. Here is the field dependence of the critical current for columnar defects patterned in hexagonal lattice. It's rather tricky structure, and the vortex dynamics in there, but I will just skip it for now. Okay, so, and it's different if you place these columnar defects in a ordered or random way. So at first matching field, when we have the number of vortices equal to the number of inclusions, the disorder in placement will significantly reduce the critical current. So it's much better to have the ordered placement at first with the matching field. So here I would like to present the optimization in ellipsoidal defects. So this pattern can be characterized by three quantities. So the diameter in this direction, and diameter in this direction, so actually in XY plane, and by volume fraction of the occupied by these defects as well. So surprisingly, if you consider this under magnetic field applied in this direction, current applied in this direction, they during optimization process they evolve to columnar defects. So at the end, the diameter in z direction is bigger than the system size all the time. So we end up with columnar defects with almost the same volume fraction as for spherical defects. Which one? Okay, sorry. So for the columnar defects, so let us compare the critical current value in the optimum for spherical and columnar inclusions. So for spherical, we have about 6% of the depairing current in the optimum for the given field and almost zero temperature. So for columnar defects, if you consider the random uncorrelated placement, then we have about 9%. For correlated placement, we have 20%. But it doesn't answer us the question, which was in the very beginning. So for this, we need to consider something more advanced, so some mixed opinion landscape, for example. So, and we consider it as a first attempt, the mixture of columnar inclusions and spherical inclusion. But surprisingly for this problem, we got, again, columnar inclusion with the same critical current. So, of course, the volume fraction is the same, but the volume fraction of the spherical defects goes to zero in the optimum. Yeah, so basically we just add this to the table. And now let us consider even more difficult problem where all the defects will be varied individually. So it's a set of different defects, and we can vary position and size of each of these defects. So all defects are ellipsoids with 3 different diameters, and we introduced the following procedure. So we start with some landscape, then we make some random modifications or mutations in this landscape, and if this mutation increases the critical current, we accept the change. If not, we discard one. Then we repeat this procedure several times. So here is some idea of this algorithm. So by mutation, so it's of course inspired by biological evolution, and we stop after some huge number of unsuccessful mutations. So in practice, of course, we need to simultaneously run a lot of these drops, because it requires about 100,000 evaluations of JC. So, and we do them in parallel, more or less. So this algorithm is easily parallelizable, and we run this on Titan at Oak Ridge in parallel way as well. So let us see how it works. So let us consider the superconductor. So it's 3D type 2 superconductor in magnetic field applied perpendicular to the to this plane, and the external current is applied in this way, so horizontally. So here is the evolution process. So we see a set of mutations, consequent mutations. So the color is the critical current in there. So, and by mutations, I mean different perturbations. So, for example, adding some defects, copying defects, removing defects, resizing defects, keeping the volume fraction of the defect. Then we can split, combine defects, move them randomly, or attract or repeal pairs of these defects. And you can, in principle, see all these mutations in here. So typically, to get the result, we need from 30 to 100 successful mutations during this simulation, and about 10 to the 5 dead mutations, so which decreases the critical current. And since this method not always evolved to the, at least quickly evolved to the best configuration, we need from 10 to 100 independent runs of this method. So we start from the empty superconductor and run this process and do it from approximately 50 times. So this is the evolution tree. So by these thick marks, the successful mutations. And by this smaller dots, I show the unsuccessful mutation or dead mutations with smaller current. So we go from empty superconductor, then it generates one defect with somewhat larger critical current. Then it somehow can modify this. So it can go other way. So it's just some particular run. So then it modify this, then copy this defect to the other one, and so on and so forth, and ends up with these walls. So this is 3D walls in this plane, so parallel to the both to the current and applied field. So at the end, we see this huge amount of the unsuccessful mutation, and this is a stop criteria for the algorithm. So if it cannot increase the critical current, it assumes that this is the optimum. So, and yeah, this is psi squared or density of the order parameter, and this is absolute value of the critical current and the optimum. So we see that we see the collective effect of the pinion in here, and this is actually the source of relatively large critical current, which is now about 40% of the depairing current. So it's twice bigger than columnar inclusions. So a few words about this pattern. So first of all, it's very it's a coincidence, but it's very reliable to modifications. So for example, so this is a sampling over the distance between these walls. So, and we see the flat critical current as a function of the distance. So, and the same for a thickness of each wall. So it's pretty reliable. So for example, for columnar defects, it's not the case. So there we see some very narrow peak. So if you make in experiment, if you make some mistake in the placement or in the diameter, then the critical current will significantly drop. So the other thing, so if we optimize the superconductor for a given field, then for a smaller field, we will get approximately the same critical current, which means that optimizing the landscape for some given field, we automatically optimize it for smaller fields. This is also a coincidence, by the way. So it's not true for other inclusions. So for most of, but not for all of the inclusions. So yeah. And as a conclusion, I would like to show you again this table with the last result. So it basically goes from 6% for spherical defects to 40% for arbitrary mixed defect, which leads to walls due to our algorithm, and which is the evidence of the best possible landscape for maximal critical current for this. In this approach, at least. Okay. So thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. So we have time for questions.